Kevin Stefanski's handling of Shedeur Sanders says more than most press conferences ever could. From limiting his reps in practice to downplaying his potential post-injury, the head coach seemed hesitant, and that hesitation nearly cost the Browns. Sanders didn't just overcome that. He made a statement. With almost no prep time, he led with clarity, made plays under pressure, and salvaged a win that could have easily slipped away.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
The rookie adjusted. The coach didn't. That disconnect matters. Sanders' performance exposed a glaring truth. Leadership at the top has to match the hunger on the field. The Browns don't just need a quarterback with poise and vision. They need a coaching staff willing to move out of the way when it counts. The future of the franchise may have just walked onto the field last week, and now it's up to the organization to decide whether they're going to build around him or keep slowing him down. Shedeur Sanders walked into his first NFL start with a week of practice, a roster full of question marks, and a head coach who hadn't exactly gone out of his way to back him publicly. And then, like it was business as usual, he walked off the field with a win. Not just any win. A win that instantly changed the conversation. Every sports desk in the country had to reassess. And Rich Eisen, he didn't just reassess. He raved. For a guy who's watched more quarterbacks come and go than anyone can count, Eisen's reaction said everything. He called Sanders' debut not just impressive. It was proof. Proof of poise, of talent, of leadership. Proof that the Browns may have finally stumbled into what they've been searching for, a franchise quarterback. And let's not gloss over the context, because the situation Shedeur was dropped into was not set up for success. The Browns coaching staff, led by Kevin Stefanski, had been hesitant from the start. They limited Shedeur's practice reps. They mishandled his injury. They publicly dodged questions about his readiness. It was clear the coaching staff wasn't fully behind him. But here's the part that changes everything. None of that mattered. Shedeur came in and showed he was built for this. The first few snaps were rough. Rookie mistakes, timing issues, nerves, you could see it. But then something shifted. He settled in. The game slowed down, and he started making throws that didn't look like anything close to rookie-level football. That on-the-run pass, the one that looked like it was ripped from a movie script, that was the moment. The one where everyone watching realized this wasn't hype. This was real, and Rich Eisen saw it. He saw that Sanders didn't just manage a game. He led it, with confidence, with maturity, with the kind of clutch execution that's supposed to take years to develop. Eisen didn't hold back. He gave Shedeur the kind of praise that carries weight, and he made it clear this isn't just a good rookie performance. It's a glimpse of something bigger. So now the pressure isn't on Shedeur. It's on everyone else. Because let's call it like it is. The coaching staff didn't believe in him the way they should have. Stefanski's decisions, early hesitations, lack of reps, and a bizarre reluctance to acknowledge what they had, put Sanders at a disadvantage. This one didn't validate the coaching plan. It exposed it. And you know who didn't step up the way Shedeur did? Dillon Gabriel. The contrast between Sanders and Gabriel couldn't be clearer. Gabriel, also a rookie, has struggled with consistency, decision-making, and presence under pressure. Meanwhile, Sanders walked in with less prep, higher stakes, and more chaos, and still looked like the more seasoned quarterback. That's not an accident. That's what happens when a player has the right mindset, the right work ethic, and the ability to stay grounded no matter what's thrown at him. It's also a reflection of his background. Shedeur grew up with a front-row seat to elite performance. He's the son of Deion Sanders, sure, but he's never used that to coast. If anything, it's made him work harder. Because no matter how famous your dad is, you still have to perform when the lights hit, and Shedeur performed. This wasn't about being flashy or chasing headlines. It was about making smart reads, managing clock, avoiding unnecessary risks, and keeping the offense moving. He made clutch throws, extended plays when he needed to, and took care of the football. It wasn't just about what he did. It was how he did it. Calm, focused, in control. That's what separates the hype from the real thing. Now, here's where things get serious. Because if you're Cleveland and you've just watched a 21-year-old quarterback lead your team to a win with minimal support, minimal prep, and maximal pressure, and you still aren't ready to commit? That's coaching malpractice. The Browns cannot afford to treat this like a one-off performance. They cannot go back to the rotation. They cannot stall his development with more evaluation periods. This needs to be a turning point. Stefanski needs to stop hedging and start building. Shedeur has already shown he's mature beyond his years. Now the coaching staff needs to match that maturity. It's time to acknowledge the mistakes. Time to give Sanders full first-team reps. Time to adjust the offense around him. Because anything else sends the wrong message, not just to Sanders, but to the entire locker room. This is a team that's been dying for leadership at the quarterback position. And now that they finally have it, the response cannot be hesitation. It has to be commitment. And let's not pretend the bar was set impossibly high. This is the Cleveland Browns. This is a franchise that has cycled through quarterback after quarterback looking for anyone, who could bring stability. And when one finally does, they get cold feet. That's how teams stay stuck. Shedeur is not just a rookie who played well. He's a signal to the team that they don't have to settle anymore, that they don't have to brace for mediocrity, that maybe, just maybe, they finally have a leader worth building around. But building around him means trusting him, supporting him, giving him the tools to grow. And it also means being honest about what's holding the team back. Kevin Stefanski's play calling and quarterback management have come under fire this season for a reason. The hesitation, the inconsistency, the unwillingness to take bold steps when they're needed. It's all contributed to a team that looks stuck in neutral. That has to change. And it starts by making a decision. Is this Sanders' team or not? One, because everything on the field says it already is. He's already earned the locker room. He's already impressed the analysts. And most importantly, he's already given fans something they haven't had in a long time. Hope. That's not a small thing in Cleveland. For years, Browns fans have been sold on potential, on maybe next year, on quarterbacks who had talent but lacked leadership, or leadership but no accuracy, or flashes of both but never at the same time. And now, they've got a guy who walks in with 1 week of practice and delivers a win in his first start. There's no excuse to wait. There's no excuse to drag this out. If you're still unsure after that performance, you're not being cautious. You're being blind. This is what a franchise quarterback looks like. He's young. He's driven. He's humble. And he's clearly got the skill set to grow into something special. But only if the team stops treating him like a backup and starts treating him like the centerpiece. So what happens next? That's up to the Browns. Do they lean in? Do they build momentum? Do they hand him the keys and stop looking back? Or do they fall into old habits, overthinking, second-guessing, and letting politics get in the way of progress? Whatever the answer is, one thing's clear. Shedeur Sanders just changed the conversation. And if the Browns are smart, they'll let him change the future, too. If you're with us and you believe Shedeur should be the guy going forward, hit that like button. Let us know in the comments where you stand. Do you think Rich Eisen was right? Are you sold after one start? Or do you need more? Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter. Because whether the Browns are ready or not, it looks like a new era just started. Let's not sugarcoat it. This isn't just a feel-good rookie story. What Shedeur Sanders did in his first NFL start is a direct challenge to the Cleveland Browns organization, a challenge to the status quo, a challenge to every cautious, half-measured decision that's kept this franchise spinning its wheels for decades. And most importantly, a challenge to a coaching staff that's acted like giving him the spotlight was some kind of gamble, when it's becoming clearer by the day that not giving it to him is the real risk. This game was a referendum, and everyone saw it. Fans, analysts, players, former coaches, and Rich Eisen, he said the quiet part out loud. This is different. This is a quarterback with presence, poise, command, and control. A rookie who looked more comfortable under pressure than guys with 10 times the experience. A player who walked into a franchise known for dysfunction and stabilized it in 1 week. But let's not forget, he did it while working uphill. Because Shedeur wasn't handed this job. It wasn't groomed for him. He wasn't given months of first-team reps. He wasn't being championed by his head coach. He wasn't even part of the core plan until the Browns ran out of options. And still he delivered. That's not luck. That's not a good day. That's not catching a defense off guard. That's preparedness. That's talent. That's what it looks like when someone's ready, even when no one else around him is. KS, and the scary part? This was him just getting started. The Browns coaching staff now finds itself at a crossroads. Because you can't pretend this didn't happen. You can't stuff it into the rookie flashes folder and move on. Not after the way he controlled that offense. Not after the way he earned the trust of his teammates mid-game. Not after the way every camera caught the sideline watching him like they already knew he was the guy. And if the fans saw it and the media saw it, you better believe the locker room saw it. Because that's the thing people forget. Players know. You can't fake it in the huddle. You can't manufacture leadership when a game's on the line. And when someone like Sanders steps in and owns it, the guys around him feel it. That's where momentum starts. That's where culture starts. And for the Browns, that's where changes start. But only if they're brave enough to embrace it. And right now, the only thing standing in the way of that change? The head coach. Kevin Stefanski's handling of Sanders before this start wasn't just questionable. It was careless. You got a talented, mature, high-upside quarterback on your roster, and your response is to bury him on the depth chart, limit his reps, downplay his readiness. It's one thing to be cautious. It's another to be short-sighted. And the decision to sideline Sanders up until now hasn't just been a neutral mistake. It's actively cost this team development time. Time where Sanders could have been building chemistry with the starters. Time he could have been adapting to pro speed. Time he could have been establishing himself as a team's emotional and strategic core. Instead, that time was wasted on quarterbacks who didn't deliver, on game plans that didn't work, on a coaching philosophy that still stuck playing not to lose. And here comes Sanders, cool, calm, prepared, and just wins. No drama, no fuss, just results. Now let's talk about the broader implications. Because this wasn't just a game, it was a potential franchise pivot. For the first time in years, Browns fans have someone to rally behind. Not just a quarterback with an arm, but a quarterback with a vision. Someone who leads with humility, performs with confidence, and backs it all up with results. That's not a promise of future potential. That's present impact. And when you compare that to Dylan Gabriel, the contrast is almost painful. Gabriel, despite more reps, hasn't made those throws. He hasn't shown that same field awareness. He hasn't inspired that same belief. And while it's not about slamming Gabriel, the truth is unavoidable. Shedeur has already done what Gabriel hasn't. And if that doesn't reset the depth chart, then what exactly are we doing here? Because what you can't do now is go backward. You can't send Shedeur back to the bench and tell the locker room to pretend it didn't see what it saw. You can't sell development as an excuse when a guy is already outperforming your alternatives. You can't slow play a quarterback who just gave your franchise something it hasn't felt in years, legitimacy. And if Stefanski can't see that, then maybe the conversation needs to shift from who's starting under center to who's standing on the sideline, holding the play sheet. Because this isn't just about one game anymore. It's about trust. Do the Browns trust the guy who delivered when no one else would? Do they trust their own eyes? Do they trust the energy that's now building around Shedeur Sanders? Or are they going to stick to the script that's kept them stuck for 2 decades? This is the part where good organizations separate themselves. The smart ones, they recognize momentum. They ride the wave. They build around it. The scared ones, they hesitate. They go back to what feels familiar. And by the time they realize their mistake, the opportunity's already gone. And Shedeur Sanders is an opportunity, not just for wins, but for a shift in identity. The Browns don't have to be the team with the quarterback problem anymore. They don't have to be the franchise that almost figures it out. They don't have to be stuck in quarterback purgatory, but only if they stop waiting. Only if they stop playing politics. Only if they start making decisions based on performance, not pride. Shedeur Sanders earned that start. He earned the win. And now, he's earned the right to lead this team without the caveats, without the doubt, and without having to look over his shoulder. So what happens next? We'll see. But the pressure's not on Sanders anymore. He did his part. Now it's on the coaching staff, on the front office, on the organization to step up and say, this is our guy. We're moving forward with him. Because the alternative is wasting a moment that every other struggling franchise in the league wishes they had. Here's the thing. This chapter doesn't start quietly. It doesn't sneak in. It announces itself. When Shedeur Sanders walked onto the field for his first NFL start, there were doubts swirling around him, not just about his readiness, but about whether he even belonged in the conversation. After all, this was the Cleveland Browns, a franchise with a long and tragic history of quarterbacks chewed up by the system and spit out before they had a real shot. And Shedeur? He was stepping into that mess with 1 week of practice, and a head coach who still hadn't said his name with conviction. But when the clock hit 0 and the Browns walked away with a win, those doubts didn't just fade. They evaporated. Shedeur Sanders didn't just manage the moment. He owned it. And more than that, he redefined it. This wasn't a game that fell into his lap. He didn't inherit a well-oiled machine. He stepped into a team that's been limping through the season, full of hesitation, second-guessing, and a kind of uncertainty that makes every snap feel heavier than it should. And with all of that, Sanders delivered one of the most composed, clutch, and confident performances this team has seen all year. Rich Eisen saw it. He didn't wait for permission. He praised Shedeur the way you praise someone who's already showing signs of greatness. Not potential. Not could be good someday. Now, he talked about Shedeur's ability to lead under pressure, his toughness, his readiness, his confidence. He brought up the reality that Sanders pulled this off after barely getting a full week of reps, after being kept on the sidelines, after not being prioritized in the team's planning. And Eisen wasn't exaggerating. He was saying what the film already showed. And here's the part that needs to be hammered home. This wasn't Shedeur showing up and surviving. This was Shedeur showing up and elevating everyone around him. There was energy on that sideline. There was belief. And when you see the players responding to their quarterback with that level of respect, you don't ignore it. You build around it. Unless, of course, you're Kevin Stefanski. Because let's be honest, Stefanski's handling of Sanders up to this point has been baffling. You have a quarterback with maturity, athleticism, intelligence, and command, and instead of preparing him like a real option, you bury him under a fog of cautious coaching cliches. You limit his snaps. You delay his reps. You say things like, "We'll see where he is," while trotting out quarterbacks who can't string 2 drives together. And now that Sanders has forced the issue, what's Stefanski going to do? Go back? What would you even say to the team? "Hey guys, I know you all just saw what Shedeur did with limited support, but we're going to play it safe and hand the ball back to someone less consistent." That's not strategy. That's sabotage. The Browns are at a fork in the road. One path is the usual cycle. Second-guessing. Quarterback shuffling, regression, frustration. The other path? It starts with trusting the player who just put the team on his back and made things feel possible again. And yes, it's still early. Of course there will be tougher games. Of course there will be adversity. But if this team doesn't ride this momentum, what are they even waiting for? A perfect quarterback who doesn't exist? Because what Shedeur Sanders just gave Cleveland wasn't perfection. It was something more valuable. Proof of concept. He showed he can handle pressure. He showed he can process the game. He showed he has the mental and emotional discipline to be the leader this team needs. The Browns coaching staff has been playing scared all season, playing not to lose, playing to survive. But Shedeur, he played to win, and it showed. The difference between him and Dylan Gabriel is night and day. Gabriel's been inconsistent. He's looked overwhelmed. He hasn't moved the offense in any sustained, meaningful way. He's had more time, more preparation, and still, he hasn't delivered the way Sanders just did. And it's not even about numbers. It's about composure, about confidence, about what kind of presence you bring into the huddle. Sanders, with just a week of real prep, looked like he belonged. Gabriel hasn't shown that yet. And when you're trying to compete in a tough conference, there's no time to wait around hoping a guy eventually figures it out. Not when someone else is already doing it. Now, let's talk about Shedeur's upbringing. Because people love to point out that he's Deion's son, as if that somehow diminishes what he's accomplished. But what they miss is that growing up with Deion didn't make this easier. If anything, it made it harder. Every step Shedeur takes, every throw he makes, every game he plays, all comes with comparisons, with expectations, with the assumption that he's only here because of his name. But that's just noise, because once the ball is snapped, the name doesn't matter. The game is honest. And what the game showed us last week is that Shedeur Sanders has earned every bit of this. He's grounded. He's disciplined. He doesn't ride the emotional roller coaster. He doesn't talk himself up in press conferences. He leads quietly, confidently. He lets the work speak for itself. That kind of mindset, you can't coach that. You either come into the league with it, or you get eaten alive. And Sanders? He looks like someone who knows exactly what he's doing and where he's going. The only question now is whether the Browns will keep up. Because if they stall this, if they treat this like a fluke or try to develop him in the background while sticking with safer options, they're going to lose him. Maybe not literally, but mentally, emotionally. You can't keep asking someone to carry the weight and then refuse to give them the support they've earned. It's time to be real about what this team needs. They need a leader. They need consistency. They need someone who can take chaos and calm it down. And they have that in Shedeur Sanders. The Browns have spent so many years looking for a spark. A quarterback who can shift the culture, lift the locker room, and give the fans something to believe in. And now that one just walked through the door and did all of that on his first try, what more do you need? Let us know where you stand. Should Shedeur be the Browns starter from here on out? Was Rich Eisen right to hype him up like this? And what should the team do next to make sure they don't fumble this moment? If you're all in on Shedeur Sanders, hit that like button. Share this with someone still holding on to the idea that he needs more time. And subscribe. Because we're following every twist in this story. And something tells us we've only just seen the beginning of what Shedeur is going to bring to Cleveland. This isn't just a highlight. It's the start of something real.